Hello, everyone. This is Brother Benson Media, and today we are very lucky to be hosting Mr. Eric Ayaga, who we are going to discuss the issues concerning Africa, especially Africa independence, stroke democracy, stroke coup. Because we know of late we've seen so much is happening, especially in Africa towards the West, where we have the military coup that has taken place in most of the countries that were colonized by the French government. So today we are here with Mr. Ayaga, and we are just going to have a conversation and maybe to share ideas on what is happening in Africa. Without wasting too much time, may I give the opportunity to Mr. Yaga so that you can introduce yourself to our viewers? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, my brother Benson. I'm Eric Ayaga. I'm from Kenya. I'm in Kenya. We want to converse on the issues pertaining the current situation in Africa, and I hope you will enjoy and understand and be part of the conversation as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yaga. Just to start with, we've seen so many cases in Africa, just to mention but few, especially Congo. Congo has been at war with itself for the longest time. And recently, I think it's 2 months ago, we saw some few head of states from Africa who went to mediate a peace between the Ukraine and Russia, the war that is taking place. And when they were doing this, Africa itself has issues. What is your thought on that?
I think African leaders are overreaching its mandate, but I also think Congo is not at war with itself. The
Hmm.
war in Congo is being facilitated from outside. So sometimes our leaders down here is beyond their reach, but I think they should manage it because peace in Congo, if you look at Congo is the central of Africa, and Congo has a lot of mineral. When we can speak in one voice as Africans about the minerals in Congo, and those the minerals will benefit us, because when there is a war, those minerals, the mining is taking place. Nothing has not stopped. Everything is going on as usual in Congo. Mineral mining, everything, trade. But I think the outer powers, most of the colonizers between the West and the East, they are waging war in Congo, unnecessary war in Congo that our leaders should now manage, because since independent, Congo has suffered one thing: planting a puppet leader that serves the interest of someone. The
Hmm.
independent leaders like Patrice was killed,
Hmm.
Mobutu Sese Seko was planted.
Hmm.
Then when Mobutu went against the West, it was also overthrown by Laurent Kabila. Laurent Kabila also went against the West, because sometimes your people's interest is ahead of everything.
Yeah.
It was kicked out of power through his son,
Mhm.
Kabila. Now we have this Shishikedi,
Mhm.
which is trying much to bring peace in Congo, but let us see. So African leaders actually should give Congo a priority rather than the war that is going on in Russia and Ukraine.
If you are a very good historian, if you listen even to speeches of the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, where Kwame Nkrumah was spearheading for Africa to have one military, one nation, everything one, and one central bank, where by I think he said if one Africa country is independent and the other ones are not, then Africa is not independent. Do you think if people or the leaders then could have listened to Nkwame, today Africa could have not been the place where it is right now?
Yes, Mr. Benson, because two leaders actually, immediately after independence, they called for the unity of Africa. Julius Kambarage Nyerere and Kwame Nkrumah. They actually call for the unity of Africa. Kenya is in the East Africa side. Nyerere even had proposed that they delay the Tanzania independence so that Kenya and Tanzania can have independence at the same time and we have one country. The same calls were made by Kwame Nkrumah. What happened to Kwame Nkrumah? He was overthrown because he was going against the dream of the West. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown on his way when he was visiting China, I think so, and he was not even aware that his government had been overthrown. So he was informed by the ambassador,
Mhm.
a Chinese ambassador. So it's Africa has been fought. It's called neocolonization. These people never want to leave Africa. They were forced to leave Africa. They still hang on tightly in Africa, more so economically. Maybe they let us rule ourselves, but they always speak for us, whoever rule for us. Any leader who is pro-Africa, who speaks Africa, is not easy to be in power. And that sometimes I sympathize with Malema. It will not be easy for Malema to be the president of South Africa. It will not be easy for him, just like Raila Odinga in Kenya. Anybody is against, who is pro-Africa, who is have Africa at heart, it's
Mhm.
not easy to be the president in Africa because number one, we were divided. I think Africa is one country.
Yeah.
We were one country with a diverse culture.
Yes.
But if you look what these people did, they destroy our cultural values and our social status, and they planted theirs. In Africa, who there is no, even in history, there is no one Africa who participated in the demarcation of these boundaries we call borders.
Mhm.
No Africa. And that's where we should start. Who demarcates? Number one, the boundaries where we can say, I'm leaving Kenya, I'm heading to Uganda. I'm leaving Uganda, I'm heading to Congo. Who in Africa and what was his name? A man or a woman? We must start think from that point.
Actually, when you look at the history, there's none, because if you look at when there was a Berlin conference, that's when they had this meeting and they decided on how they are going to put on the boundary. They are going to set the boundaries for Africa and how they are going to colonize Africa. And when they came, they did that because the Africans really fought, but due to the fact that Africa did not have technology with the weapon, our weapons were very crude, traditional weapon. That's why we were defeated. But generally, the Africans really fought for their independence, really to get that freedom. But some also collaborated and might that weaken the Africa. Now, when we are coming again to the independence of Africa now, right now, like most of Africans, we feel like we say that we are democratically and independent. Do you think we are? If even our elections, sometimes when we have elections, they are being validated by the West, that we have to wait. If you have election dispute, we have to say as a country, what are the European nations saying instead of what are the Africans or the people of particular that country are saying?
Thank you. I think my understanding with this thing we call democracy
Mhm.
is that there is no democracy. Democracy has never worked for Africa because Africans, most of African countries, has never chose a leader whom they want in a free, fair, and election. Anything the European Union and the United States call a democratic election or free and fair election is where they have planted their puppet. If you see any African nation going through electoral process and after election you hear the UN, the United Nations, the observers from the United States are saying the election was free and fair. There was no free and fair election. They have planted their puppet on Africa. But where they say the election was done in a gerrymandering way, that's
Mhm.
where the election was free because Africans actually choose and maintain and have the leader of their choice. They say that about Magufuli, or the second term of Magufuli, because they expect Magufuli to be defeated by somebody called somebody. I can't remember the name.
Tindulisu.
Tundulisu.
Yeah,
Tundulisu.
Tindulisu.
So
Yeah.
when Magufuli actually won, they told us point blank that that election was not free and fair. But that was the free and fair election because it is the same. We are moving with the same process. There is no election that has been held in South Africa, in Tanzania, and nobody is complaining. So every time Bernard Benson, you hear them
Mm-hmm.
saying something like free and fair or democratically elected.
Mm.
No, that is a puppet. And they always protect their puppets.
So that we might say that for me now, what I understand based on what you are saying, we might have what we call a dictatorial democracy. Then a dictatorial
Yes, yeah,
democracy is where you are having somebody that you did not vote for and you are being told to accept it.
exactly.
So
Exactly. They
how
call
can
it legally.
yeah,
It is legal.
yeah.
It is legal procedures.
Hmm.
They can manipulate, like in Kenyan case, they can go to IBC, they
Hmm.
manipulate it through court, and they tell you it is legally is the president. So I think it is Africa should now come to time and they realize that what they were told by Kwame Nkrumah some
Hmm.
50, 60 years ago,
Hmm.
the same thing that they were told, we should, number one, why should we have the foreign languages? Look at our education, Bernard.
Hmm.
We have a system where English is permanent in our schools.
Hmm.
It's a permanent subject, and agriculture is optional. Anything to do with technical, like business courses, are optional.
Oh,
So we invest more in speaking good English with empty stomachs
and
because you will be speaking good English, but you cannot propose, you cannot invest anything in agriculture. You can't.
and
That is
and
the problem we are suffering, where we have good professors. They can speak a very good English. But if you ask those are our professors, they don't have any innovation. They don't invent even a Panadol. We just bury them as professors. We live with them as professors. There is even no proposal
mhm,
in even the social status. They will be celebrated for that so and so was a professor. He did this, he invented this, he planned this, he gave us this. Tom
mhm,
Boyer was not a professor in early 60s.
mhm,
The plan he made in 1960s are the things we are still implementing here today in Nairobi.
mhm.
Yeah, we have very young people by the time we got independence. They were not much educated. Most of them they had diploma or a degree. Today we have professors,
Mhm.
people who hold doctrines or doctors and whatever you can call them. But ask them, in their lifetime, they invent nothing. But when it comes to good English, they speak very good English. And that
Fluent
is what we can celebrate about.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you because even in our own setting where we are as when we speak, when one of us maybe try to speak with an accent of like they feel like you are kind of inferior. But let's say like somebody come from Europe or somebody comes from
You are
America,
stupid.
and somebody comes from Europe and another person come from America and they speak Kiswahili, you are surprised. Like how can he speak Kiswahili? How can it happen? Like to you, him speaking Kiswahili is a news and a big achievement, but to you speaking a language, English, that is not your mother tongue, and you have like an accent in it, you feel ashamed of it. And that's kind of the scenario that we are seeing. And so let's go to the western part of Africa, where we've seen the military coup taking place and everything is going on. What is your take on what is taking place in West Africa?
I fully support what is going on in West Africa.
Mm,
And I am praying in a situation where the Senegal, the Gambia, the Guinea, all those countries join in is
Mhm,
a very good wave. The sons of Africa are now thinking about Africa
mhm,
because it is very hard,
mhm,
Benson, to tell me that Niger is the second poorest country in the world
mhm.
and is the fifth producing of uranium in the world.
Yes.
Those two words cannot be in the same statement.
And
But the West are making it look like it is normal to have a mineral and be poor at the same time. So we
and
support.
yeah, and that was worrying me because I was doing a research and I came to realize that the Niger produces like a lot of uranium, and the uranium is used to make nuclear. Yeah, and the uranium actually it's going to France. The France are the people who are the France government. The French government are mining it and using it, and like they said they are very good in producing nuclear. They would say that they might say even that France is the largest country that produces nuclear, but they do not have that source. The source is from Africa. Yeah, and they were saying last that they're not going to give what we call aid to that country. If you look at what you are getting from uranium and the aid that you've given us, and the aid does not reflect on the people, how then would it be that now, like we say, like now you have to be on your own? How does it work?
It's not making even sense, leave alone working. It's not making sense that you give an aid they are giving is something that is taking the diversion, wrong diversion. In fact, is diverting our ideas into discussing things like gayism and lesbianism, while they are taking our minerals that can support our nuclear power, that can help us access electricity, have a nuclear, whatever, even nuclear medicine, and then somebody tell you a aid that they are there to preach about some disgusting things like gayism and lesbianism. They can have their aid. Let the Niger people keep their uranium and sell it to whoever they want at their own cost to benefit them. In fact, I think what leaders, African leaders, should do from now, if they don't want us to support those coups, because we will support them. And we were warning ECOWAS. I was in a discussion where we warned the Nigerians. Nigerians are all over Africa. I think they are getting what we are seeing. If their country is used by foreign powers to invade the Niger,
Mhm,
we will evict them. We will evict all Nigeria in all country, and that is what we will call, because they have to feel the pinch
mhm,
of having a president that works from outside to kill the Africans. What happened in Niger is a white coup, is a white revolution, is a white revolution. No blood has been spoiled.
mhm,
I saw even the president, the Bazoum, Mohamed Bazoum's supporters, they were dispersed honorably when they were protesting
mhm,
against the coup.
mhm,
No blood has been shed
mhm,
in Niger up to now. We will not allow, as Africans,
mhm,
where now somebody goes with armory,
mhm.
goes with the military power to kill people in Niger because they want our mineral that they are not paying for. So it is high time the ECOWAS should realize that they come to their senses, or else you will see a coup in Nigeria. You will see a coup in Senegal. You will see a coup in Gambia and the rest of those countries, and even in Cameroon.
And like as ECOWAS, did even when they were having a meeting and they resolved like they want to use the military to solve this issue, do they even have a picture of what happened in Libya? Until today, Libya is not a country because it was done through military.
Libya was almost the African richest country, and Libya was destroyed by NATO. we will not allow again any other African country. That's why we are calling for ceasefire in Sudan. We are calling for reasonable and understanding to be upon the people of Congo. We want calmness in Somalia. We are praying that they look at what is happening in Arab countries. They are even normalizing ties with Israel. They are even in calling this man from Syria, al-Assad.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him back to Arab League. They are not stupid. They say we are fight enough. We are not fighting for ourselves. This fight is not benefiting our people. Let us come, sit down, and reason. I have not seen Arab countries think that there is a peace deal that is being sponsored by Saudi Arabia in Yemen. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Iran is today can talk with Israel, even if they still have some difference because Israel is pro-West. Yeah, why can Africa we sit down and say those are our sons, those generals are our sons? Why should we go after them? Let us sit. Where is the problem? I'm in love that they even call it off that the official language in Niger is not France. They
Mm-hmm.
can pick one of the local languages, even in Kiswahili, if they like. We can go there to teach Kiswahili. Yes, we are ready to go there and teach Kiswahili so that we have one common language. You ask me this question: why can't we have a one common language? Why can't we have a one common currency? Why
Mm-hmm.
can't we have a one military? Why can't we have a one policy in Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The reason is when these people colonize us, we were divided into a way that we are not allowed to come together, because if you move to Uganda, you
Mm-hmm.
speak English with them. If you go to Congo, they don't know either they speak Belgium or they speak in French.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
the other Congo, because there are two Congos, there are Zaire, the Demo Republic of Congo, and Congo. If you go to Congo, they speak fluent French.
Yeah.
Up to when? Where we will divide the brothers that speak the same mother tongue and official language, make them two different people. We need to come up
And that one's
with a
remind
solution.
me when you look at Cameroon, there's part of Cameroon that was colonized by the British, and the other one was colonized by the French. But for now, I think even right now, those they usually
They
fight.
want to secede.
Yeah, they usually
Yes.
fight. And this has been always a fight in Cameroon. And remember, the people who are fighting, they are people who share the same the same country,
Land.
the same
Yes.
mother, the same father, and like they just only fight because of a language that was a language that is borrowed, that is not our own original language. This is a language that was brought to us, and that's why we are fighting for. So I think
So they call themselves francophone, anglophone,
yes, yeah, that's what is happening. Yes, and
and even look Senegal.
mm,
Senegal,
mhm,
Gambia is a river, and that river was captured by the British.
mhm,
Is like a piece of land following that river inside Senegal.
mhm,
And today, when you come from Dakar, Senegal, which is the capital city, if you go to another city, which also along the Atlantic Ocean, you have to cross international border twice. You have to cross into Gambia, then you cross again. Why?
and
That is where I told you at first, where we should sit down and talk. Let us tell our own history. Number one, who demarcate those boundaries?
mhm,
Were they Africans? If it was not Africans, there are some countries that we have to do away with and create. If it is the Yoruba, we have like 200 people speak Yoruba. We can join those people together. The
mhm,
people, the English, the Kiswahili speakers, we join them together. Then if you go to Southern Africa,
mhm,
they're the Hois or whatever they call themselves. Let us join those people together. If we join people together, we will only have like 2 or 3 countries in Africa
mm,
with 3 main languages. And the problem will be solved once and for all. And from there, we can now discuss how we can have a unitary military,
mm.
because it is only Africa that we have the foreign bases. I don't think if America have a base in Russia, I
No.
don't think if United States
Mhm,
have a military base in China
mhm,
or in India.
mm,
It is only in Africa and failed state in Arab nations,
mm.
Arab countries that
Yeah.
are now coming up with a strategy.
Mhm,
And they were being told to leave. Why can't they leave? You cannot have a military base equipped with water and everything in a desert in Niger
mm,
for the United States when we don't have electricity supply in that country. For about 70% of people are not able to access fresh water, are not able to access electricity. Why? Why should France have a military base in Niger or in Senegal? Why
Actually,
should we have
if
a
they,
French military base in Manda in Kenya here?
yes, we have, I think they have the military based in Mali or Burkina Faso too. They used to have a base. Like most of the countries that were colonized by the French, they mostly they have the military base for French there. Uh,
Yeah, but why should that be? Why should that be? If we have a fight as Africans, let us sit down. That is what we are calling now on Africa, to realize that let us come together as Africa. Or else, when the Arab League
mm,
will unify, they will not be exploited, because what they brought here is called divide and rule. They
mm,
divide us, number one, in terms of language.
yeah.
I cannot sit with my brother from Congo. I cannot speak because the guy is speaking a French, I'm speaking English. Now we need a translator in between. So we cannot speak our issues as ourselves for ourselves. It is something, Bernard, that. But if you go to those countries, French, they don't even bother speaking English. They don't. Even their president, I've never heard their president even utter one word in English. And when Magufuli was speaking Kiswahili,
Yeah.
they were saying Magufuli is not his intellectual capacity is very low. I have never heard a German chancellor speaking in English. I've never heard. Maybe he knows English, but I've never heard. I have never heard a prime minister, any prime minister of England
Mm,
or United Kingdom, speaking in French or Spanish.
mm,
It is high time we start embrace our language. Let us speak in Kiswahili. If they don't understand, they look for a translator. It is simple and clear. If you read a book by this man called Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o,
mm,
Kenyan professor still in United States, once upon a time he was receiving an award in Barcelona, and he speak in Kikuyu, and people were saying, "Oh, this guy is coming, is now getting mad. Why can't he even speak in Kiswahili? He's speaking in a language he can speak," because he told those people, "I will speak English in my accent. You
yeah.
will call me stupid."
Mhm,
Because if I tell you today to speak in Kikuyu, you will speak Kikuyu as if you are speaking English, and I will call you stupid. So I will speak in my mother tongue. You look for a translator to translate for you in in the best language you can understand.
mhm.
Yeah,
There's what I usually call the economic immigration. The economic immigration is where most of the Africans, yeah, do migrate to other countries, yeah, it, because maybe the economy of the country is not favorable, or the government is not doing what it should do to make the economy stable or to make those jobs. But when the countries where they are moving at are the same countries that most of the time taking our minerals. So the minerals are being extracted here, but you're moving from this country, you're going to work on those companies instead of the countries that are mining those minerals to put them here. Yeah. to construct those big companies here so that our people can work here instead of them going migrating because of the economy. And this one leaves the country in a poor state. And that one, maybe if those who have gone, who have knowledge, should come back to the country and maybe could try to um, bring the knowledge so that the country could grow up in terms of economy.
Exactly, but you know what happens is that when you go overseas, like most of our brothers who went overseas,
Mhm.
and maybe their knowledge is discovered, they are not allowed to come back. They are given a soft life. They even offer, we can give you a house, we give you a green card, you can bring your family here, so
Mhm.
that they use the little knowledge in these people up to a point that these people sees their fellow blacks
Mhm.
as useless people. So they don't want to come back. We have very many professors, very many people, doctors, who are in other countries because number one, they are claiming that the payment is good, they're affordable, they have been given everything, so they move with their family, which is very wrong. The
Mhm.
Sons of Africa, the call of Sons of Africa to be back was started by somebody called Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
Garvey started this song in 80s because he realized that at this rate, we will be slaved, but in a modern way. We call it employment.
Mhm.
Because now we cannot catch you by force. We cannot have you by force. Now we will have you intellectually. We go to Africa, we pick the best, we give them scholarship, and we don't allow them to come back.
Mhm.
So when they are coming back, they are too old to work for Africa or think for Africa. And to make matter worse, no proposal. That's why I told you, our professors, no proposal. They have not even write anything that can benefit Africa. So that we say the same way our professors worked hard because they were brainwashed to translate Bible into our local dialect.
Uh-huh.
There is no science book that has been translated into our local dialect up to today. That is the biggest scam we still have as Africans. Because those books they are reading over there,
Mhm.
those science books, if you can just bring them home,
Mhm.
translate them in Kikuyu,
Mhm.
translate them in Kikamba, translate them in Kiluya, translate them in Kiluo, translate them in Kimasai, the same way they were happily translating Bible into even small tribes in Africa,
Mhm.
we can understand where the world is going. But until then,
Mhm.
our people, our sons who went to abroad to study there, majority of them, not all of them,
Mhm.
majority of them has failed us in Africa.
Let's go back to ECOWAS because there were some demands. I think like right now they supposed to have a meeting and the meeting was called off when they say they have activated their military. But when you look at the West, even you find there was a coup in Burkina Faso. Mali too had a coup. Why is ECOWAS so much interested in Niger? Why?
Nigeria is like the mother that is feeding one of the foreign power called France.
Mm,
You have had it in the same international media stations. They are accepting that the uranium from Niger is what creates a nuclear power and produce energy like 70% of that country called France. And they are saying France is at a risk of going to darkness if those generals will maintain their words of not trading with them. My proposal is very simple.
mhm,
If somebody depend on you, is good. If now they can realize that they depend and they love, they depend, and Niger is of much importance to them, that much.
Mhm.
Number one, they should apologize for not developing or give that country a money to develop. Number two, they should apologize for supporting the puppets that have always put their interest ahead than the interest of the people of Niger. Number three, they should apologize for the year wasted for the people who have died for hunger. And I think the repatriation, Bernard, Israel is going on because they are being paid by the Germany. Most of Germany's money, who knew Hitler today? Majority of the people who are today paying the money for Israel were not there, or most of them were very young when Hitler caused what it did in early 40s.
Mm.
France must pay for African nations. They have to. They have to. From neo-colonization. We don't want blanket apology. Say
Mhm.
we can work, yes, but under the condition that number one, you confess, you ask for forgiveness, and you pay us. Because look, you see these puppets they always plant in this country.
Mhm.
These puppets are very corrupt. They steal that little money from France, and that money is kept again in France. That in case, for now, they are calling for the release of Bazoum.
Mhm.
Where will Bazoum go? He will go and enjoy his life in France while people are really suffering. Bazoum should not be released. He should face and feel for what the common mwananchi, the people of Niger,
Mm.
the hustlers of Niger have felt all those years. He should not even sabotage eating. I'm told he's sabotaging eating and doctors want to see him. He should not even be allowed. He should feel the pain of his people, apologize for his people, stay in that country and tell France, if my people have said so, this is where I was born. Not that he will be released, he will be taken to Paris, he will enjoy life, and he will wage a war from outside. We will not allow that. Any president that is overthrown today in Africa, it should be made a common a common raia, a common person in that country, so that he can feel the pain of that nation.
And that one brings me to what we call democracy, because when you find like the Western, or the Western nations especially, saying that that was somebody that was democratically elected, we agree. But if you look at, if this guy was democratically elected, when you look at the life of the people there, nothing is taking place. If you look at even education system, nothing is good. When you look at the education system, when you look at the infrastructure, when you look at everything, but when you look at their individual life is far much better. They're living very good life. That even does not reciprocate on the life of the people they lead. And yet being told like this was democratically elected person.
Yeah, and that is what I always opine, that the capitalism system of governance, has never worked for Africa. If it works for the West,
Mhm,
it has never worked for Africa.
mhm,
Because in a capitalism kind of administration is where you make very few people rich and you maintain the base of the pyramid totally poor, not even very poor, totally poor. Is somebody who lives for hand to a mouth. Is somebody who, even if you are killing people for money, if you got that person has done a budget for supper, he doesn't have, and he
yeah,
doesn't even know where tomorrow the money will come. That is the total poverty.
mhm,
Yeah. So I am saying the capitalism has never worked for Africa. That's why sometimes people say I'm a communist person.
mhm,
Bernard, there is something, Benson, there is something that will take place in like 50. We may be there, we may be not there in 50
mhm.
years to come. if you look at Tanzania,
Yeah.
they have a mineral called tanzanite.
Yes, Tanzanite. Yes, I know.
That is why Magufuli died. Nah, that is why Magufuli died, because he really wanted to know how that mineral will benefit his people. If they can get presidents like Magufuli, it is only in Tanzania where even mathematics is being taught in Swahili.
Yes.
It is only in Tanzania where all sciences are being taught in Swahili. So those people are learning even at a slower rate, but at least they are moving on in a very good trajectory, because these things you are being taught in a language you understand the best, and you can choose what you go. They may be slow, but they will move into a right direction. Even in Kenya, even in Nigeria, most of the science books, if we want to be serious with our people, let us do what we call the translation so that they understand. That is what helped China.
Mm-hmm.
China was colonized, India was colonized, Japan was colonized. Yeah. But immediately after colonization, they never bother go after foreign languages.
Mm-hmm.
They went to their a language that even a poor man in the village can read and understand what is doing. Today, if you give even our people, most of our people, a note of how to rear a cow or a hen in a plain written procedure, and
Mm-hmm.
you take this book to the village, they
Mm-hmm.
will look at it and put it aside
Mm-hmm.
and do a very wrong procedure. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can translate this book of how you can only have maintain or manage 100 head of cows in
Mm-hmm.
a proper manner, and you do it in Kikuyu, you do it in Doluo, the same way they do the Bible, where you can get even a class 2 is preaching in the village because he understand the Bible, he know the verses, he cram the verses. Why can't we do the same with our books? And I think that is where the communist is better than us. Because if you go to Russia, the language they speak is Russian. The same language the professors are speaking is the same language a poor man understand in the villages. But in Africa, we were placed in a situation where we can even have this interview in English, and my grandmother or our brothers from deep up countries can take years to consume the information we are talking
No,
about.
a perfect example is I don't know whether you've witnessed this when maybe some of our brothers, not all, but some of our brothers who are in the foreign land, when they come back home, they tend to forget even how to say hi in our mother tongue. We stress our parents with English, yet they did not go to school. Mm, it do happen.
So I think the first thing,
Hmm.
our learned brothers, our professors, there is no community now. Like in Kenya, we have 42 tribes. In Tanzania, we have 142. In Uganda, we have about 80 something tribes. Let
Oh.
us ensure
Hmm.
that the books we are reading,
Hmm.
these books we are reading,
Hmm.
that will pump knowledge into us. The same way they were told it is the Holy Spirit work, so
Hmm.
that they rush and translate the Bible
Hmm.
into our local dialect. It
Hmm.
is the same way we have a little procedures of how to maintain a farm, a 1 acre farm,
Hmm.
and doing what we called aquaculture, where you have your fish there, you have your chickens here, you
Hmm.
have 2 or 3 cows that can produce 40 liters of milk, rather than having 40 heads of cows. They just walk with the ticks around, and they are very priceless, and nobody want to buy them. And those who are doing beef, let us make these procedures very easy for them to understand,
Mhm.
in their language they can understand, so
Oh.
that before we call our people ignorant,
Mm.
let us have some good faith on them. If the Niger can actually do away with the French language, it will take them some days, but they look for one local language where the majority of people speaks in that country. It will be better for them.
Let's go to Burkina Faso, where we have Traore, and Traore is one interesting guy, and so many journalists and many people have wrote about him that he shares the same similarity like that one of Thomas Sankara. And I can remember his first speech when he made they went to they met the Russian president. And another speech that I think of was the one that when the French government said that they are going to cut the aid for them, and he said like they've been getting aid for the last 63 years in Burkina Faso, but nothing has changed. When you see a 35-year-old guy very courageous like that, what picture does it give you about the Africa of the young emerging these leaders?
Thomas Sankara once upon a time told us that you can kill a revolutionist,
Mm,
but his revolution ideas
mm,
will not die.
mm,
We might be delayed, we might be, maybe they placed some obstacles in our way, but the sons of Africa will rise, like Malema will be born again in South Africa, Raila Odinga will be born in Kenya, we will have Kagame will be born again in Rwanda, and we will have so many Thomas Sankaras
mhm,
in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and even in Senegal. That young guy have Africa at heart, but I fear for him. He might be invaded like Gaddafi and killed. But the problem is our own brothers who are traitors and acting like, as betrayers for the West.
mhm.
Let us give him time. If you read the story of Thomas Sankara, he was a president from, I think, 1983 to 1985.
Yeah.
He was a president for 3 years. Where he left Burkina Faso has not made even a 2% of that 3 years up to today because he went to the villages. Number one, to say we will not have a bigger curse and our people are sleeping hungry. He
Mhm,
went to the cheapest model ever. And for him, sometimes he could move around with a bicycle. Yeah. We want a president who is a friend of the people. When you befriend your people, who are you fearing? But look at the African country where we have the poor people like Kenya. Our president alone work with 50 gasless cars, more than 300, more than 300 trained personnel.
um,
If you go to Niger, even the Bazoum, before he was ousted,
mhm,
you could see him with the gaslers moving around that desert country.
mhm.
He lives in a very good ecosystem with plants and everything, while the majority of people in that country, that's why you have fear. Even in your own village, if you have money alone as only one person,
Mm.
and the rest, like majority, like 95% of people in the same village do not have money, you will have a very big fence. You
Yes.
will have a very big fence. You will have a concrete walled fence.
Mm.
Why are you fearing? You are fearing the people you went to school with.
Mhm,
You are fearing the people you sometimes go and fetch firewood, even hunt with, you walk with them. You are fearing them because the reason for why you're fearing them because they are poor.
mm,
Let us eradicate poverty. Let us make the base of poor people become at least Let us turn that pyramid. Let
mm,
us have opposite pyramid, where we will have very few people feeling they are poor. But when we keep majority poor, we will have lords. We don't even have presidents in Africa, Bernard.
mhm,
We don't have presidents because I watched a Lithuanian president the other
mm,
day when he was addressing. He only had two bodyguards and one car.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
I looked at some. Is it which country? I can't remember the name in Europe. The
Yeah.
president lives in apartment with the people.
Mm,
But in Africa, we can't have that. Why? Because of poverty. If poverty is our problem, let us get to the root. Our people, Bernard, are poor because they are ignorant. The ignorance of Africans are calibrated in how you understand and speak English, leave alone what is in your brain.
yeah.
Even if today you can speak a very good English, a very fluent English,
Mhm.
you can understand English, people will say you are very clever and you are very intelligent.
Intelligent,
They
yeah.
can even employ you.
Mm,
Yeah, they can even employ you. But when you can't even speak in English for 2 minutes,
mhm,
if you cannot understand English, even if you have an idea, nobody, nobody in
mm,
these sub-Saharan, southern Saharan countries
mhm,
will bother even employ you. That's why the interviews they are being done in English.
mm,
Everything they are forced in English
mm.
because the English is the perimeter wall to prove your intelligence. We have our fathers who reared cows that took us to school. They do that modern farming that took us to school.
Yeah.
The climate has changed.
Mhm,
Why can't we now help our brothers in simplify the procedures of doing farming? Simple farming,
mhm,
where if you can own 2 acres of land, you should not be poor. But the people we call poor in Africa, most of them in up countries, have 4, 5, 6 acres, doing nothing, having 40 cows. The guy is poor because one cow take 5 years to grow is when you can sell it 15,000.
15,000.
Yeah.
Mm,
And you have worked on this animal for 5 or 6 years.
mm,
So why can't we translate? That is the first point. That
mm,
is the first point. Let us do things in a language that our people understand.
mm,
That is when we will actually rate if they are stupid, if or not stupid.
mm. And now, I just want to ask you now, what is the process that Africa?
Yeah, because Africa is the
Uh, uh, hello, I'm asking this now. What is the process that Africa should take towards its leadership? What is the process? Where should they start from, and where should they go from their starting point? Ayaga, did you get?
what Africa should do. Number one,
Yeah.
they should debunk the imagination and wrong history.
Mm.
You can get me?
Yes, I'm getting you very clear.
Yes, number one thing African must do
Mm,
from okay, Africans should debunk on the white man theory,
mm,
the white man way of understanding things, because culturally that was not our culture.
mm,
We have a methali in Kiswahili that says muacha mila ni mtumwa.
mm,
If we leave our way of living and trying to fill somebody else's culture, we
mm,
will be their slave, either we like it or not. We cannot plant tea in Kenya. That tea is being plugged by Kalenjins here at home. And the processing of that tea is being done in the Netherlands. That tea comes back in what we call grades. Grade 1 for rich people, grade 2, grade 3. A local man who weeds, who plugs, who maintain the tea, take the third grade. Somebody who sits here and very corrupt and collude with the West in dealing with these black people, take the grade one.
mm,
And we call them leaders. Africans should realize himself. Number one, we should debunk our people's thinking of money. African culture was not meant for money. I know it can't work. It is something, but let us just try these ideas. Africans, for somebody to be called wealthy, they were looking at the number of hectares of land you have,
mhm,
the heads of cows you have, so many things. But we have just abruptly dropped our culture. We are going on with somebody else's culture where we have to look for a paper that
mhm,
is called dollar,
mhm,
and we are working for that dollar, and we are being rated for that dollar, and even our local currency
mhm,
here. So we are making the Maasais, because these people, they really divide us. We have Luos in Uganda, we have Luos in Kenya. If I want to visit my people, my same people, I speak the same language with them in Uganda.
mhm.
When I reach the border, I have to change my currency from Kenyan money to
To
dollar.
$2.
If not dollar, I have to go at a loss of having a paper bag of Ugandan money walking around with. Because if I have a 1 million Kenyan money, I can have only one pocket or two. If I go to Uganda, I want to use dollar, it will be a very small money. I will just put it on this small pocket. And if I don't want to use dollar, now I want to promote my fellow brothers there, and I want to go with their
Mm,
local currency, I have to carry a box
mm,
or two boxes.
mm,
Where that's where the leaders, our leaders, has a problem. Number one, let us have a common currency. Let us divide Africa into what they have now calling blocks. ECOWAS, have your own money.
yeah.
SADC, have your own money. In IGAD, East
Yeah.
Africa, whatever, have your own money. If
Mm,
we can only have three currency in Africa, we will start a process. Let us also go in terms of telecommunication.
mhm,
We have, it is only Africa where we have 54 codes, which is the number of 54 countries. I think even United States are 51 states, but I don't think if they are using 51 codes, where Ohio have its own code, Illinois have its own code. If you go to Georgia, they have their own code. I don't think so.
mm,
I don't think so. Why can't we make only four codes in Africa? The IGAD code, the ECOWAS code, the SADC code, and we can say for again the Sahel
mm,
region, they can also have one at least. Let us reduce this, because if you come to this level, we will understand each other. We will give a big area
mm,
of operation. If I go to Uganda, I go to Uganda as a Ugandan,
mm,
as a East African. If I go to Tanzania, I should not face any restriction. So our leaders
mm,
should think, they should pick our value first and say, why should Masai, who is in Namanga, Kenya, the other side of River Mara, and they have his brother who went the other side because colonial powers decide so.
mm,
Somebody in Berlin decided to separate families.
mm,
If you are going to visit a family, you have to have a passport. You have to have pass through immigration. You are just going to see your brother. You speak the same tongue.
mm.
I think until then is when we will discover ourselves as Africa, and let us rewrite our own history. Let us rewrite our own history. Bernard Benson, the history we were taught,
Mhm,
like the first human being to see Mount Kenya
mm,
was somebody called Ludingcraft. When there were local people who were staying around that mountain, and that's where they pray facing all those years. We were told Nairobi is above sea level, is 500 meters above the sea level. From which sea were they measuring from? Do we even have sea in Kenya? We have ocean, of which they were not measuring from our ocean, they were measuring from their sea. So there are a lot of things. Like Sijui, the first human being to discover what Lake Victoria was another queen that was just walking around. Let us rewrite our history.
Yeah,
Let us rewrite our history. And let us stop this thing of when an African made achievement. Like today, if an African can fly that jet they call F-16, they will say the first
mm,
black to fly F-16. Let us stop that. If you read the history of Africa, the first university was here in Mali during the Manmosa time. The Africa, all the civilization, the richest man in the world, that nobody has ever even the Twitter's people like Elon Musk can come, they will go, they will never reach there.
and
And let us, you see, this is our mineral. Let us make use of minerals because today, Africa, we produce minerals. Naturally, God bless us with minerals, which I thank God.
mhm,
But where is that mineral being deposited? It is United Kingdom that have a lot of deposit of gold. But
yeah,
there is no mine place, even they are digging, even in a small quantity. They are
mm.
just bringing it from Congo, they deposit it. We will be slave. When they say there is now no currency, we are now using gold, we will also be again slaves.
And that's something, like there's something that you've talked about especially some of our rivers, mountains, and these, they are not named after us. And like somebody would come and say, you are being taught in school the first man to discover Mount Kilimanjaro. So does it mean that then we were not there? Does it mean that our forefathers were not there? But if you look at our
We were
history,
there, but we were
yeah.
there, but our education system was totally different with these people's education system. So when they were introducing this thing, they came with a white man's superiority to show us that white people are so superior that when they tell you this is a mountain, is when you can know it is a mountain.
Mm,
Even if you are calling it in your local dialect God, like what we do. But we have to discover this is a hilly place where it is only a white man who must say that.
yeah.
so,
And,
so
and,
we
mm,
have to rediscover. It's called rediscovery,
Africa.
rediscovering our history, rediscovering ourselves.
Hmm.
Let us come back to our senses because what we were taught is
Hmm.
totally what is displacing us. I love Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He wrote a book of decolonization of mind. If we will not decolonize our mind, we will still just imagine that whoever discovered the longest river in the world was another white man from somewhere.
From somewhere. Yeah, somebody saying this is Sugar D Siakam. He's saying all the coups are created in the West. It is them who impose leaders on Africa using divide and rule method to distract Africans because the time when countries are unstable, they gain a lot. That's what he's saying. Uh, Somebody is also saying here the only thing that shall save Africa is Africa shall start thinking for themselves. That's the same person. Then we have Teacher Masai. I had a man in Turkana with the 10 camels and countless goats who called himself poor. Africa is rich, very rich. There's also somebody called Teng. I think on a common currency, the East Africa are working on having a common currency and also abolishing passport when visiting any East Africa country. So that is what is there.
I think that is something that ought to have been done long time ago when Julius Kambarage Nyerere,
Hmm.
in fact, propose for a one country. We can have one country called East Africa,
Hmm.
and have one president and have these people we call governors as Kenyan governor, Ugandan governor, Tanzania governor. We can still have these leaders who are calling themselves president, but we ought to have. We are very late. That's why we are speaking about it. You know, when you are late is when you can talk about something, but when you are on time, you
Mm-hmm.
say we will only make adjustment. That my brother is saying they are working on. That thing ought to have been done long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, it should not even be they are working. It should be something that our leaders sit down. We have only three presidents in East Africa. We have Kaguta Museveni, we have Suluhu, we have President Ruto in Kenya. Let us have this. Immediately from today, let us sign what we call, they can even call it East African Declaration or whatever. We abolish East Africa, let us have one currency, let us have one. But you know why they're saying they are working on it?
Mm-hmm.
Because the value in our currency, where the Tanzania currency is little lower than that of Kenya, and
Kenya.
the Uganda one is now further, where we have 1 shilling in Kenya is around 33.
Mm-hmm.
So, who is doing it? The West is telling us how our currency
Is
should play in the international space. So if you say today we have a common currency, that currency will be rated again by the West. And Kenya maybe don't want to go to the lower heights
mm-hmm.
of Uganda and Tanzania. So
Mm-hmm.
it will be they are working on. There are some things you do what you do, like what the Nigerians are do. Let us do a coup. Let us wait for what happens. Let us abolish all these currencies we have and let us have one. And let us wait to see that new East African currency will be rated how with the dollar.
Okay, Ayaga, I know we are almost we want to wind up, my brother. But before winding up, we cannot wind up without saying one or two things about what is happening in Kenya. And my main focus in Kenya will be the bipartisan talk that is going on. And the bipartisan talk has been brought by what the chronology of how the election and everything. And I want to put more so on about their demeanor. There were some of the things that they were pushing so much. Yeah, one, they were first of all they were pushing for reinstatement of IBC officials. Secondly, they were pushing for opening of the server. That went and died off. Then it came signing of the signature. That also went, and Maandamano came. We saw how we lost young men, especially from Luo, Luo Nation. Now there's a bipartisan talk that is taking place, but in the list that we saw on the media, some of the things that are there are not the things that they were fighting for. What is your take?
I think in my own kind of reasoning,
Mhm,
what is taking place in Kenya is where we have leaders are being forced to do something that, in their right mind or on their own decision, they
mhm,
don't want to do.
mhm,
If you look at Kenya Kwanza side, they were rigged and planted by the CIA, the United States, and the United Kingdom. And they were given one condition, that they must make Raila Odinga comfortable. That is what they have been in politics in Kenya. Let us not talk about this bipartisan talk as if it is now something that has started yesterday or it is a new thing we are talking about. In the late days of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, he planted a son and he warned Moi that maybe umeniweza, lakini my son will deal with you. When Moi realized, says, just after first general election after the death of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Raila was number 3. And Raila Odinga had balkanized Nyanza that Moi used to plant some people to interrupt him, like Tom Mboya, like Oukos of this world, like Odongo Mamos of this world, like Aringos of this world. They managed Jaramogi because Jaramogi was in his old age. So, as much as they were voting for Jaramogi, there was a little bit instability in that region. When Raila come up, people think the Nyanza will go that direction because we had Orengo, who was Raila Odinga's age mate, we have Nyong'o, we have Joel Omino, we have actually little sharp young people who are the same age mate of Raila Odinga, and they had joined politics. They were working with Jaramogi. But when Raila Odinga entered with the African mind of leadership, you can only have one lion at the forest. That when he crows, the others stay calm, even if they are also have voices. So Raila Odinga balkanized Luo into one thing, and before they even realized, Raila Odinga had captured the larger Kisii region and Western. So since that time, they have tried to dislodge Raila Odinga from the Western, which has not worked, and they have tried to dislodge Raila Odinga into the larger Kisii. That has not worked. So what do you do with somebody who command like bigger place? Like, these people, those regions I'm talking about, Kisii, Lower Nyanza, which is Luo Nyanza, and now the Upper Nyanza, which is the Western Kakamega, Vihiga, and Busia. Those people, they come to Nairobi as diaspora. So when you command them back at home, you also command the capital city. And you also command several towns like where they work. In Mombasa, in Nakuru, you can command some places in this country. So what these people are always doing to Raila Odinga is you take power from him and make him comfortable. That thing was planted with Moi after 1997 election. Let us not pretend it is a new thing with a bipartisan talk. It is the name that it is the same forest that we always change the name every year and year in, year out. I don't know how it was called. It was called something cooperation between NDP and KANU. And Raila Odinga was made the secretary of KANU.
Yes, I can remember.
Yes, and was made the minister of energy.
Mm-hmm.
After that, that was a handshake. After that, we come to election of 2002. Our main problem in Kenya was created by somebody called Kibaki. Let us call a spade a spade. As much as he realizes, because you cannot tell me what Kibaki did between 2002 to 2007. You cannot tell me one project. Apart from free primary education and few works here and there in terms of media, opening the space to the likes of Citizen and NTV and other media stations, bringing what we call at least freedom of media, which Moi had a problem with. Kibaki did nothing between that period because, number one, he went to a war with Raila Odinga just like 1.5 or 2 years after the election. And they went to a total war. They proposed for what we call Bomas draft, constitutional change, which Raila Odinga rejected, and Raila Odinga beat them. And they sensed danger. When they sensed danger, so they had no option. So they had to do what they did in 2007. So when 2007 happened, that's where Raila Odinga fails people. People wanted him to have power through thick and thin. But he went for a handshake because Raila Odinga is a statesman. Remember, Bernard, you are robbed of your leader, your victory. Even the chairman of ECK by that time, Mr. Kivitu, came to the media, public, with international media open. He was asked, who won? He said, I don't know. So if the IEBC, if the electoral body chairman accepts that he doesn't know, maybe because he didn't want to say it is the loser who won. That is the easiest way of telling you it is the loser who won. And the person who I sworn in at the State House never won. Yeah. Because if you say you don't know, we have to think twice. Because obvious is the answer. The winner is not the winner is the loser, and the loser is the winner. Raila Odinga came to power through what they called a grand coalition. They worked for 5 years. So they thought Raila Odinga is also going Jaramogi way and is old and he will lose some parts of Western. They robbed him again in 2013. Uhuru Kenyatta tried to maintain that heat. That heat burned him again when he robbed the Mzee again on 2022 or 2020. I mean 2017 now. So in 2017, even our courts agree, because we have a new constitution and we are testing waters in judiciary. Our judiciary agrees that the election was not free and fair. When the United Nations, when the AU, when the Americans had actually congratulate our president Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta for his re-election, and they had even made a statement as usual that the election was free and fair. So this caught them off guard. So the radar of Supreme Court was not on their radar. The radars were not. So in 2022, they did it smartly, where they rigged in another man. So after that, Uhuru Kenyatta was forced, because this guy has destabilized you between 2013 to 20, and he also beats you here. He will give you a lot of trouble. You have to work with him. Raila Odinga again failed his supporters, but because his supporters are loyal to him, understands him, and we call him Baba. Even if your father is wrong, sometimes you say, Aisuru, I cannot fight with my dad.
Mm.
So we actually accept, and he went into what is nowadays famous as a handshake. And it is that handshake where the goose of Raila Odinga was brewed, and actually it was cooked very well, and they served him. But as usual, Raila Odinga is a man of whose peers say is a man who never lacks options.
Mm-hmm.
Raila Odinga went to that election. He went to Supreme Court. After Supreme Court, he made a statement, and he went and stay at home. As usual, you always go outside the country, and then he stays there for 2-3 months. So when Raila Odinga came back, I think this year, into a public limelight, it says, even if I'm old, I want to teach these people a lesson, because the West thought they are now done and dusted with Raila Odinga. So Raila Odinga came back, because Raila Odinga never started maandamano immediately after election. Election was in August. There was no maandamano even in December last year. The maandamano started around mid-March this year, like eight months after election.
Mm-hmm.
So he went and collect his strategy, and he called his supporters, and his supporters accept the call. So I don't know what these people are speaking about, because number one thing that Kenya Kwanza will not agree to discuss is the high cost of living, because they blame that on the previous administration that Raila Odinga was part of in handshake. So, and also Raila Odinga side want to force this issue, but when people are going to talk, you must have your minimum, reducible minimum, and I also have mine. But I think within the talk they will agree. But I think this talk comes about is being forced by the same people who always rig the election. Because I want to tell you, Bernard, what happened. What happened
Mm-hmm.
during these 2 days maandamano in Luo Nyanza, in
Mm-hmm.
Western region, in Kisii.
Mhm.
is something that can cause a civil war and easily, because those people are talking about, let us now protect ourselves,
Mhm.
let us have a guns. And my fear in my lifetime
Mhm.
that I want to always people say, I'm not saying because I'm coming from a low ethnic extract. I'm
Mhm.
just speaking as a normal human being because I know my brothers, if they can manage to fight with a stone from morning to evening, if you give those people a live bullet, they will attack the barrack daytime or midday, and
Uh,
they will say, let what happen happen. And
uh,
we will have a total anarchy. Because number one, if they have those guns,
mhm.
which nowadays, when how the world is, we can get they can get them from somewhere else, from other
Yes.
quarters of the world.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it is something that I think with the US having intelligence,
Mhm.
because the rate at which these people are parading those bodies, it is not okay. It
Mhm.
is not okay. It is something that is meant to decrease the emotional hunger on
Mhm.
these people. And when they are called upon,
Mhm.
because many people thought that Raila is done and dusted, that even if he calls for Mandamano, nobody will come out. And they told us
Mhm.
Raila is finished. He goes to Bondo. He should rest. He will never come up again.
Mhm.
So when Raila surprised them, we saw those Maandamano in Mulolongo, we saw them in Mombasa, we saw them in Nakuru. I was in Kitale,
Mhm.
Kapenguria, even in Turkana.
Mhm.
I was going to Kakuma, and I actually witnessed people blocking the roads. It was very bad. And I think if United States want to help Kenya,
Mhm.
Bernard, brother Benson,
Mhm.
let Kenyans have free and a peaceful election. Because if Raila Odinga will not participate in that so-called bipartisan talk, that is what I fear. That's why I partially support it.
Mhm.
And he will say that the election body that is now made by the Kenya Kwanza, he is not even imagining of participating in that election, either for himself or even supporting anybody else. And he
Mhm.
called his supporters to boycott that election. Even Kenya Kwanza, the people in Kenya Kwanza who are against these talks, they will have a very big regression in
Mhm.
their life. Because if he call his supporters and say they have created their own, that one is working for their own, that one is theirs, we
Mhm.
have a very big procedure here that is coming.
Mhm.
Boundary demarcation, we will either increase or reduce some constituencies. If he say that will not happen in the region he command,
Mhm.
if he says that the election will not take place, what will happen after 2027, when we have some sections of Kenya with governors, with MPs, with MCAs, and they are ready to go on, and some have totally have no leaders, and they never participated in that election, and they are not recognized anything of that election. I am not imagining, because people are talking of 2022 election that is over. What we should talk about, and we should be very keen
Mhm.
to, is the next election.
Mhm.
If he call his supporters, if he say I'm supporting Kalonzo today, but I'm calling on my supporters, so we will not have election in Okwambani. We may not have election in Pwani province. We may not have election in Nairobi. We
Mhm.
may not have election in the larger Nyanza region. We may not have election in almost part of Western. Then I don't think we will be sitting here talking of election, either stolen or not stolen. People will talk in a language that it will be the greatest civil war. Yeah.
Okay, okay, Mr. Yaga, let's keep on hoping the best that out of the talks it will find a very good solution for Kenyans. And maybe your closing remarks to our viewers. Hello, Mr. Yaga.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say this. I personally, I am supporting the talks. If those talks succeed, let us have one thing once and for all. Let us have held responsible for the people who killed those young Kenyans.
Mhm.
And the first thing I ought, as me, if I was in those bipartisan talk, is the compensation by government to the families that have lost their loved one, and apology to those people, and held responsible for the police inspector general and the criminal gang. Not all the police. We cannot cover blanket cover and say the Kenyan police are bad. Very wrong.
Mhm.
We have few criminal elements that act as police
Mhm.
under the order of their bosses, like here in Nairobi, in Kisumu, and in places that they did those atrocity, and they formed a gang, a special squad, Subaru boys, that killed these people in a plain clothes, having guns. Let us hold somebody responsible. If we will not hold somebody responsible, the kind of propaganda, the
Mhm.
kind of a talk that is going down there, people, the Kenyan will reap what they are sowing in the hearts of some sections of Kenya. And it will be very bloody, because I don't think if those people they will.
Okay, let's wait for Mr. Yaga to come. We were almost closing the show, and let's wait until he's coming back. I want to take this opportunity to thank those who are watching and those who have sent us comment. And kindly, please, I'm asking of you to invite a friend so that you can subscribe to our channel, so we can have this conversation each and every day. For now, I don't have much to say, but I will tomorrow we might be having a show and we will be discussing something also. We have a guest that will be coming soon. So tomorrow, keep locked here. Hello, Mr. Yaga.